Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non-Judgmental Podcast, sponsored by Bean Scene.
Today we are thrilled to have Devrupa joining us. Devrupa is a multimedia journalist who has been weaving stories for quite some time now. Her work cuts across a fascinating range of topics from mental health and gender to pop culture and societal issues. Devrupa, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great. I'm looking
You've
forward to
covered
this discussion we are going to have today.
Yes, you've covered such a wide range of spectrum of issues in your career. What initially drew you to multimedia journalism?
So I had started out as a lawyer in my career, but
Okay.
that wasn't really a fit for me as I realized like 1 or 2 years into it, because of like a bunch of issues. But I had always enjoyed writing, and I think I've always loved authentic storytelling. Um, and I don't know how I started. I guess I was just bored with my legal career and I just started figuring out how to pitch stories to publications. And beyond a point, I realized that that is where my calling is. And that's where I've been working. And with storytelling, I've realized how, like, when people are able to connect to it and people message me and say that, hey, this story of another person that you've written made me feel seen. That is why, like, my focus, I think, the more and more I started focusing on authenticity in my stories. And given that we experience such a diverse range of things in our life, it just made sense to cover a diverse range of topics too.
And you just made me feel like I just want to ask a question that you just shifted
Of course.
from your legal career. Was it you took a break in between when you're studying law, or it was once you completed? Because honestly, I love podcasting, I love meeting new people, but now that the expectation benchmark is so high with so many people doing it with so many various softwares and editing skills and such, so I think that all requires a team, editing team and people to do xyz and all. But for me, I've been struggling doing it, but I really enjoy it. So I always wanted to do it, but that fear of judgmental, that what will people say, how would I look, what would be my appearance. And if I want to be the genuine who I am actually as a person, few people might for few people it might sound fake and vague and I don't know what all. So there's a lot of overthinking side to it as well. But then my friends motivated and my family was so supportive that they said it's okay, you should stop actually worrying about what people would say rather than just do what you actually love. So it's wonderful to
Yeah.
know that you shifted from your law to storytelling, and that's been amazing. The article that you shared with me, I'll drop in the link in description
Mhm.
for everyone to read it out. It was so wonderfully written that I could sense that somewhere down the line we actually live split personalities or two different personalities for different people, I could say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't get what your question was there. So sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask, like, was it in between the education that you realized that you really are not enjoying the law, or was it once you completed? Because why I'm asking this question is because after I always wanted to do my MBA and I did it, but I ended up
Hmm.
getting jobs that I don't want. I am not a salesperson and I don't want to be on a field sale. So that's when I realized that okay, fine, this is not something I always wanted to do. It's better I figure out something. So I'm happy with what I'm doing right now. So that's the reason why this question popped up.
Okay. No. So I completed my legal education. Then I worked as a lawyer for 2 years. I got a job
Okay.
at a tier one law firm in Bombay. It was great pay, everything, but it wasn't meant for me. The really long hours, the constantly being around people and being social, like that took a lot out of me. I think that is when like I was feeling like there's something missing in my life, but I'm still somehow overwhelmed. And that's when like I started writing again. And yes, I did take a break between practicing law and starting out with writing, but that break was mostly because I had burnt out really badly from trying to fit in at a law firm.
That's wonderful. So coming back to the article that you had written, and we were talking about that people, had to live, are still living, most of them, with two, I could say, split personalities for different people. Does that fit in well?
Yeah.
So, what is your
I
take on that?
suppose. I mean, it does feel like that, right? It does feel like. So actually, because we were talking about my legal career, let me give you an example from there itself. When I
Yes.
had started writing while still practicing law, I didn't tell my parents about it. Like the first time, like an article came out, I was so happy, I was elated. I sent the links to everybody, but I didn't to my parents because I mean, they had paid for my legal education. I didn't know how they would feel. Of course,
Yeah.
I mean, they were fine with it when I finally told them, and they were very accepting. But it feels like you're leading two lives, because on the one hand, say I'm really excited about like such and such thing going on in my life. Yet when my parents call and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing today?" I can't share any of that. So it just it's like you're inhabiting two worlds, and I mean, I wouldn't know exactly what a split personality feels like medically, because a split personality disorder is a different thing. But it does feel like your personality is sort of like fissured in the middle. And I think a lot of it is also because a lot of us grow up in households where you're not really allowed to develop your own personality, because your parents think my child should be such and such, and that's what you're expected to grow up into. So then there is that personality that you're acting out, and there is who you really are as a person. Those, I think, clash quite a bit.
I can totally relate to this, and the moment I read the article was so overwhelming and touching, because I have seen people living that life, including me in that, for that matter of fact, because there have been times where I want to be true to myself, but I want to show the true myself to the world as well, but there are so many limitations and barricades that come in between. Oh, what if they don't accept this fact, or what if. But luckily my parents, especially my mom, has been very supportive in that matter. When I first told her, I really want to do podcasting and stuff, she said, fine, for now you can continue your job and as well do that whenever you have time, and you can continue doing it as long as you want. And if you think that is growing as your career, or if you are doing well in that, then it's okay, you can just quit what the job, and you can just shift to this. So I was pretty much happier that time, because I didn't know how do I approach to my parents, because at the end I believe whatever I do or revolve it all revolves around my parents. For I believe it for me, it is as a boy, I don't know, like I feel as a male, it is my responsibility, or I don't know what, to just make sure that I tell my parents what am I actually doing, rather than keeping them in a dark zone, that without letting them know. So yeah, I believe I've heard a lot of stories from those who have been into stand-up comedy. A lot of them didn't tell their family initially that because that career, people don't accept as acceptance rate for that career was not that huge when they actually started doing it.
Yeah.
And your areas of expertise are incredibly diverse, like mental health, gender, sexual stigma, disability rights, and the list goes on. What drives your interest in such a wide range of topics?
Okay. So I am a disabled person. I am autistic and I have ADHD. And because I have ADHD, it means that I don't get bored of things too quickly, but my interests keep evolving like very, very fast. So if I am working a job where the areas are kind of limited, then I'll very quickly get bored. So in order for me to be able to sustain a career in something, not only do I have to cover a diverse range of things, but also that's where the multimedia bit comes in, right? Like sometimes just writing is not enough. Like for example, on my own Instagram account, I do a lot of content creation, and that also helps me learn how to tell stories in like different ways. So I think one of the things that I'm always trying to do is not get bored. And most of these things that you mentioned, right, that I write about, like be it disability rights, mental health, neurodivergence, sexual stigma, most of it comes from what my interest in life is at that given point. I think a lot of it stems from that. And at my previous job, they sort of allowed me to explore what was going on in my head through my articles. And a lot of things sort of determine what we want to talk about, right? Like the TV shows we watch, the people we are meeting, the kind of things that are popping up on our feeds. And I think I have just allowed myself to have those interests and figure out a way to talk about those interests, turn those interests into like work products. Sometimes that is a bit stressful because even when I'm like watching a show, I'm sometimes like, oh, but what comment do I put out about it? Over time you sort of like learn to balance that. But this has been one of the biggest reasons why it might seem like I have a very diverse range of interests.
You have so diverse range of topics or issues that you have covered till now. I don't know to pronounce the word, but on your Instagram handle, there's the website link that you have. Can you please tell us more about that and what is it about?
Of course. I think you're referring to the neurodivergence and
Yes.
disability consultant link that I have shared. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think so let me tie it back to the
Sorry.
topic first of all,
Okay,
like this double life.
Yes. Can I just
Yes.
interrupt you in between? Like, I am very new to this topic and I am struggling to even pronounce the word. So, can you please tell it?
Neurodivergence.
Neurodivergence, right? So, can you please
Yes.
explain it so that any new audience who's
Yes.
listening to can get introduced to this segment?
Absolutely. So neurodivergence is an umbrella of mental health conditions like autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, like a bunch of things, okay? Even something like CPTSD. So when you call somebody neurodivergent, it means that their neurological system is not the typically understood system. So, say somebody who doesn't have any of these conditions would be a neurotypical person, whereas anybody who has any of these would be a neurodivergent person. And the world that we live in is actually a very neurodiverse world. It's not just made of like neurotypical people or neurodivergent people. There's a lot of diversity within. And neurodivergence as a term is currently being used a lot in the media and on the internet because people's understanding of neurodivergence is sort of expanding, be it within the medical and research community or even just socially. Like previously, a lot of these disorders, like say ADHD and autism, were considered to affect males and not women. And now they are sort of beginning to understand the nuances of these and how these symptoms present differently across people and manifest differently even across cultures. So yeah, there's a lot of discussion on neurodivergence lately. And the reason I decided to be a neurodivergence and disability consultant, besides being a journalist, is because for many, many years, I did not know that I was neurodivergent myself. Like, I spent a lot of time feeling that I'm different, but I couldn't figure out why I was different. Let me give an example from a recent Netflix show I watched. It's called Geek Girl. It's written by an autistic writer who was diagnosed very late in her life, and it's also led by an autistic actor. And there's a scene where the protagonist says that I feel like I'm a polar bear stuck in a rainforest. And I think that so accurately describes what my life has been. And in India, despite the fact that discussions on neurodivergence are growing worldwide, I wouldn't say like it's all that evident in India. And especially there are a lot of people who still don't have access to these discussions because it's still a very internet limited lingo sort of thing, right? And people without digital access can't access these. So I think my reason for becoming a neurodivergence and disability consultant is to help people who are struggling similarly, like I did until I got my diagnosis and I was able to understand myself better. And the reason I was trying to tie it to the topic we are discussing today, the double life, is, I think a lot of my empathy for people leading double lives comes from here, right? Like, for a long time, I didn't even know how to like for example, I suffer from a lot of sensory overload. For example, I can't have like 2 back-to-back calls on a day because that's like too overwhelming for my senses. But earlier, like if I used to go for a party or something and I used to get sensitively overwhelmed, I didn't know what was causing that anger, that agitation, and I would always like try to find other reasons to fight. It's because while I was living a fake life, I wasn't even being true to myself, because the pressure to like conform and fit in never allowed me to explore who I really am and figure that out, which is something the pandemic gave me and like many others a chance to, I think, sort of find that, because you're isolated from the world and all you have is you, and then you have the time to sort of start figuring yourself out. So
Yes.
I think that is one of the leading reasons why I chose to like help people who are on this journey of understanding their neurodivergence.
That's so wonderful. But now that I get to know that there's not, mental health does not just stick to anxiety and depression or stressful life, and there's so much more to learn about it. I'm sure a lot of audience would be educated, at least even 0.1% of them are educated about something like this. We would be much more happier for that. I still believe there are a lot of people who still believe that there's nothing, because I have a certain people I know, they for a fact that they're just making joke out of it, like oh, there's nothing called mental health, or they're just making joke out of it. But I was just wondering, what if they get to know that it's just not limited to what major discussions happened over pandemic. There were a lot of discussions happening about depression and anxiety, and now that ADHD also has come up, like people are discovering themselves. I was just saying that there are a lot of people still who have no, as you said, there's very limited access to people to get to know about themselves, or also about this wide range of you know possibilities that they could be in. And now that you've just said, I could sense somewhere, even I sometimes I need to take some time and look into myself to actually figure out that, even if what if I am also a polar bear stuck in a rainforest. So that
It's a
was
great
one.
analogy that really relates.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, coming back to that, people are leading double lives that could, even move to, I could say that people who are not sexually aware about their sexualities, or even if they are aware, they are very scared of, coming out to people or even their family, and or even if they are having mental health issues and coming out with the same. And I have a couple of people whom I have been telling, like, the symptoms seem to be that you're not mentally well. So why don't you start taking therapy, or, approach a doctor on the same and consult it. So these people are so scared to, go for therapies and talk about what they feel. So they restrict themselves for that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times, because of this lack of access to information, people don't even have the vocabulary to express what is really going on in their mind. Like, for example, going back to the same sensory overload example, I didn't know there was such a thing as sensory overload. And when I read about it and when I started understanding it, I'm like, oh shit, this is exactly what I experienced. So I think that vocabulary is lacking to the extent that we can't even be frank and open with ourselves, because we don't know that these concepts exist. Like, our understanding of how the brain functions is very, very limited. And I think that is where like the importance of authenticity also comes in, because I mean, the pressure to be a certain way is there on everybody, irrespective of whether they are neurotypical or neurodivergent or whatever it is, right? And the more authentic people are, the more there is space for other people to be authentic, and the more that pressure to be a certain way sort of decreases. And even with like the stigma around mental health, like the reason people worry a little bit about like talking about it or even getting a diagnosis or approaching a therapist is because then it becomes more real, because then you're not thinking of mental health as like this thing in the ether that might affect somebody but not me. But once you're getting therapy, you're sort of acknowledging that you are also struggling with your mental health, and then you're worried that what if other people find out and what will they think of me. So it's the same what will they think of me that is at the root of like all of these double lives that we are leading. whether or not we are open to ourselves about the truth.
Yeah, and I was, when did I actually feel that it's better to live one life, and it your parents might take some time to understand things that you try to communicate, but eventually when they do understand and when they are totally in support or in favor, they accept you, and that's when there's a huge relief. Honestly, there's a example like that I was facing in my life. I was stuck in a relationship where I knew for a fact that things are not working the way I want to. Not just the way I want, I mean, I couldn't see a healthier side of that relationship because there was a lot of ifs and don'ts and wants and do's. So I was trying to communicate it with my parents first. I tried to communicate with my family, the ones who are very close to me, in a hope that when they understand my point of view, or when they understand the circumstances why it is not functioning, at least they'll be in favor. But they didn't. They just like ऐसे हाथ ऊपर खड़ा कर दिया कि whatever you're doing
Huh.
is very wrong and we can't support. So I was kind of backed off by this, but slowly I was trying to communicate with my mom about this, because I know for a fact that she'll understand it with time, but she will do it. It literally took me around 3 months to confront my parents that I am not happy with that relationship and I really need to cut this off. And I told them this, that, everything. And my mom said, nothing else matters to me more than your happiness. I mean, you don't have to be there just because we want you, or we want to see you happy. At the end of the day, we want to see you happy. Just to make us happy for initial 6 months, you'll be stuck in that relationship, but you're not happy, right? And that's the day she decided, okay, we'll not drag it as much. And that's when they actually communicated it with the partner and the family. I told my mom, can you literally believe I felt like I have breath? Like, I took a deep breath for a first time. Like, the feeling was so different, and the huge burden was taken away. Like, okay, now I don't have to, be the split personality and two different personalities for two different people, or just pretend that, yo, it's all going good. So it was such a huge relief.
Thank you for sharing that. And yes, I think I relate to that overwhelming sense of relief that you mentioned. Again, my relationship with my parents isn't the best, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to experience what you just mentioned. But I think in small degrees I have been able to, because ever since I mean since my teenage years I have been dating. So like romantic relationships have always been like an important part of my life. And when in 10th standard my parents found out that I had a boyfriend, like it was really bad for me that year. Like most of the year my mother didn't talk to me, and it got really really bad. And that in hindsight I realized like how traumatized I was by that, because I mean suddenly my freedom was, it's not like I had great freedom before that, but it was very very restricted. Like I wasn't allowed to go out of home that much. Like I was stuck at home and people wouldn't talk to me. And then my mother had sort of recruited some of my friends as people to spy on me in school, and it got really bad, right? So after that, whenever like I have been in like other, I mean of course that relationship ended, it was like 10th standard. Like I could never tell her about like things going on in my life. Like maybe I was going through a really really messy breakup, but I couldn't communicate. And even when I met my now partner, we got married last year. For the longest time, like we were living together. But my
Congratulations.
parents still don't know that we were living together. Thank you so much. My parents still
Okay.
don't know we were living together. And I think I only told them when, like we were fully ready and we were like, okay, let's get married next year, because like I didn't want to deal with that constant pressure. Like, oh, what is happening? When are you going to get married? Oh, you've broken up with that guy. Oh shit. This is why we tell you like you should listen to us. And when you're also dealing with like other stuff in your life with respect to work, etc., that becomes a lot to bear. But now when I have finally told them and they know that we are married and stuff, it's become like a lot more chilled out. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever be able to experience that sense of being fully accepted and fully understood by them. But in small degrees also it feels good.
No, I completely understand. That's why, before when we were communicating, I told you that, this topic can have two different point of views, and I was not sure, like, it should not, like, we are not on a debate, obviously. I didn't want to contradict with each other, but I just have one suggestion. Even I initially thought, it'll not be, my parents won't be chill about things and they'll not understand and everything. But now that the phone has come up and our parents are so active on social media also, that my mother literally sends me, if she finds anything related to mental health or something like that, then she'll send me a reel, like, you follow these steps and stuff. So I believe that somewhere down the line things have changed a little bit. I mean, I'm not talking for everybody, because no one knows what actually
Absolutely.
happens. And so you might talk to them once when you go out with them, and maybe I hope that you have a great bond with your parents as well. I mean, I am sure it is a great bond, but I want that comfortable bond that you can share what actually is going on.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of wishing, yes, that's great. But I am honestly not sure if I'll be able to bridge that gap, because there's also like a huge age gap between my parents. And my parents had me when my father was 47 and my mother was 36. So there's also like a larger generational gap than you would normally see. And I understand that, even they are sort of like set in their ways now. But yeah, maybe I should give them like more credit for being like more open-minded than I can imagine, because after all they did bring me up and I would like to think I'm open-minded. So
No,
I mean, somewhere in their parvarish were sort of able to ingrain that. So maybe yeah, I should give them more credit for it.
that's why, because I have friends whose parents are quite, a little more stricter, and who would not accept things, or, like, as you said, live in, because that is still not a broad concept in India, and still majority of them don't accept this. So I can
Yeah.
understand where, what you, like, what you might have experienced, but I can understand, but I cannot imagine the pain, or the emotions and everything that might have gone down. So I have seen parents not accepting live-in, or they have no idea about what's actually happening. But somewhere down the line, I also feel that, when you actually talk to your parents, things can be sorted out. No, it's not for everybody, because not everybody, parents, they don't try to be open minded with time. I am so lucky, touch wood, that my grandparents also with time were evolving. I swear I've been lucky
Wow.
in that. I have been so lucky
Hmm.
with that, with time they were also evolving, and I love spending time with my family, and, like, my entire family. So I have never found out, or I've never been stopped by, anybody, like, oh, this is not the standard that we are looking for, or this is not the certain way you have to live. They've allowed everybody to be who they are, and with the uniqueness. So I have never experienced being that, but also there are certain limitations which we cannot cross. But I'm happy that I have that surrounding with me, where I can be true to myself, and with them at least.
Absolutely. I mean, see, familial support is obviously very important, and the first place where we look for familial support is with our biological families, obviously. But I mean, if it doesn't happen, if it's absolutely impossible for somebody, it's also okay to like build your own family of like close friends and stuff. It's like the concept of chosen family comes in there.
Yeah.
Like in like while I was growing up, I mean, part of it might have been because either I was a girl, or the fact that I was growing up in a small town, or the fact that my parents were like much older. I was always told that what I was doing wasn't right. Like as a kid, I was told many times that I'm behaving abnormally. And again, that could also have been because of my autism or any number of things, but I never felt that it was okay for me to be who I was. But now in my house where I live with like my partner and my cat, I can be myself. And I think getting my cat, who is like obviously my family, she is my daughter, is I mean, it made me realize I think what you were talking about, right? Like that feeling of being accepted by your family. Like I think I was able to experience that like really, really with my cat, because she would just love me irrespective of what I did, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she would have her own moods and stuff, but that had nothing to me with nothing to do with what kind of a person I was being, whether I was dressed up well, whether I was looking messy, whether I had cleaned the house, whether I know how to cook food, whether I am, being diligent at work. Like nothing. Like her love is very unconditional, and I think like having her in my life also enabled me to be myself more with time. I mean, being with my partner has also helped in that regard, so not to take away any credit from him,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, he's also a human being.
Yeah.
Whereas my cat, she is not like bound by all these human norms of like behaving and all of that. And having her in my life has been great. In fact, another like really strange perk that has come from having her in our lives is when my partner has to explain my disability and like the accommodations that I require to his family and to his mother, he always uses the example of our cat. He's like, so you see, our cat would need to like take breaks from socializing, like every once in a while, or like she's going to be like very scared around new people and she's not going to come out, and that is exactly how it is with Devrupa. So like these parallels also like really help. Like having her, a non-human child, around has enabled me to be in touch with who I am as a human being.
That's so wonderful and such a cute story. I mean, I was a dog parent till last year. I lost my dog. Obviously, that was very horrific. It's okay, but yeah, it was so much fun. I used to play with my dog and then talk to it like, what happened today, this and this. Tell me where am I wrong, and he used to just pass away. He just used to move out whenever I used to talk to him about things that go wrong and whatever has happened. But it was so much fun around being with them. You can also be that childish to play with them and stuff. So yeah, I can totally understand how amazing that feels to be a pet parent and to be with them all the time.
Yeah, and there's research also which talks about, and I was like researching mostly in terms of autism and ADHD, but how if like an autistic or ADHD kid is allowed to socialize with an animal, they are able to like be more accepting of themselves.
Hmm.
So I think like what I was talking about, like this non-human teaching me how to be more human, is something that is like documented in research.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just like humans not giving each other space to like be themselves, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I still stay in a remote area. I mean, a countryside in a town. So I can literally sense that, still there are a lot of things that, you are expected to be a certain way. You are, where in tier 1 cities and tier 2 also, there are
Yeah.
a little more, people have been a little bit open minded, and they are open to many things, but here there are still a lot of restrictions. Now I have a habit, whenever I am
Absolutely.
on a two-wheeler riding, I have a habit of wearing my AirPods, listening to my filmy Bollywood music, enjoying till I reach my destination or so, and then till I come back home. So I have the habit of, I believe that I am the hero in that song and enjoying, because in real life I don't know when it, I mean in our lives we are the heroes, right? So I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. To the main
a lot of
characters.
people, yeah, and a lot of them still have a question ki, why do you wear earphones every now and then? Why do you want to listen, like, I don't know, they have such an weird questions. Half of the time it goes explaining like, this is an earphone, this is not an hearing aid machine, I'm not deaf, I can hear. So and there are a lot of things that and there are a lot of weird questions that come again with the same thing, not just with that behavior. Like, uh, I have always studied in residential school, so I never knew what it is to be at home, like, since my second or
Wow,
third
okay.
standard I've been in residential schools. So
Yeah, I was saying that I was just marveling at the fact that you've always been in residential schools, because at the first time I experienced a hostel was after graduating from school.
oh god. No, I've been in residential school, so it was always fun to be around friends, and friends have really played a very important role in my life, wherein the chosen family. I mean, that's when I got comfortable seeing them being very comfortable with with their parents, like on the family meetings and stuff that used to happen. So that's when my family also noticed. I could say that they also noticed those changes, and that's when they started molding with time. The first time, it's such a big deal for a guy to hug their parents, like especially their fathers. Last year or last to last year, when I started, like I had sufficient amount of money and I decided to gift my father a new mobile and stuff. So I did that. It was very normal. And after a couple of days, I wished him, like on the next year, I wished him. He said, Sirif, pair pad ke kaam chalayega? Give me a hug, come on. And I was like, wait, what is this
Oh,
happening? I mean, how, why, what? And even today, if my dad is talking to me very softly and, he's trying to make me understand, which he does. But usually I'm used to his rude side or rough side, I could say, wherein, he is like a little more in an anger tune when he talks to me. And then suddenly, when there's a shift in his voice, and then I ask him, like, are you really all right? Did something happen at your workplace, or is something going on? Is there something that's bothering you? So yeah, that's kind of been weird from hostel. Sorry, I was telling you why, from hostel to my parents, because
yeah.
I have seen them, the relation my friends and their parents have had. So they kind of developed that friendliness with me also, because so that I could share. Because I when I was a kid and I was in a hostel, I was bullied very badly, the ragging concept. So it was
Mm.
terrific and horrific. So I was never able to express it to my parents. It was with me for almost 5.5 years or 6 years. I was being bullied. I used to cry. Then whenever my family, I used to be the most happiest person to go home and the last person to enter the hostel. I used to make dumb reasons to no, not to go back to hostel at all, because of the bully thing that used to happen. And one fine day, when the things got over my head, like the tolerance level was over, and I said, now either my parents will come here and pick me up, or you will drop me home. I was so arrogant with the authorities there, because I was done with the tolerance level that one has. I was over it. I could tolerate it for a really long time, but then when I confronted it to my parents that I've been going through so and so issues for a really long time, and I cannot tolerate it anymore, and I cannot keep you guys happy, saying that I am very happy in my hostel. So from there, and seeing them, my friends with their families, is when they kind of developed that, they bridged the gap, so that now we are on a very friendlier note. I can make sure that I can talk to my parents about anything and everything. That's
That's
how.
really great. And
Yeah.
and I also wanted to add something to the point you said about you know male children not hugging their fathers. Like, I know I mentioned a while back about the things that women are asked to do, like how we are supposed to present ourselves, like be assertive but not aggressive, blah blah blah. But I think because of patriarchy, there are also like similar standards that, I mean, maybe there are fewer standards, maybe the standards are different, but there are still standards, right? Like, men can't express their emotions, you're not allowed to be vulnerable. Like, if you are, then it seems a little odd to like maybe people around you. And again, that is yet again like society not letting people be themselves, because you have to conform to these ideas of what like a person should be. But then there is so much diversity in humankind. How is it possible for somebody to just be like this? Firstly, I mean, of course there are more than two genders, but
Yeah.
then we have decided that this is a man, this is a woman. People have to fall into either of these boxes and like behave accordingly. So I mean, that just, like, that's very disrespectful to humanity as a whole, I feel. Because why are we underestimating humanity so much that we think we can only fit into like two of these molds, instead of understanding that we fit into like many 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 buckets.
Yes, I completely agree with you that most of the times people themselves don't want to communicate about things, and even if they want to, because of the society norms, they have to keep it within themselves. And recently I have never I have never told this experience, like, 'cause- and recently there was a guy approaching me, like, he really likes, and I said, listen, I really respect you for who you are, and I appreciate the efforts that you've taken to reach out to me, but I am sorry, I cannot go ahead with this, or I am not something that you're looking for. I politely said no to the person, and but still that person was kind enough. And I have a lot of friends who are into, not who are into, sorry, my wrong words that I've chosen, who are who they are. So, but I have never been that, no, you can't be this. I have accepted everybody. That's why, our podcast is called non-judgmental, because we want everybody
Yeah,
to live who they are, what they are, to the fullest. Because you never know if you have the
absolutely.
next janam, or tum wapas ho nahi ho, how long you are here, we don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I have recently started enjoying my life. Till 24, 25, like till 24, I used to curb on every small thing ki, nahi, this is not, it's not like I have not enjoyed, but I didn't knew what actually the true sense of happiness comes from. I always have read these quotes. I mean, I'm sure even you have come across a lot of them, that, your happiness should be in your hands and not somebody else's, because you are responsible to make yourself happy. So I didn't understand this for a really long time. I said, what is wrong with the people? How can I be happy myself when, the people around me are not happy? And, whether it's my family or friends, for that matter of fact. But then lately, I've realized that I am the one who's responsible for my happiness and my mood swings, or whatever it is. I can be the one. And I used to overthink a lot. Like, there's no limit to it. So my friends used to help me, like, if you're overthinking, why don't you write down what you feel like? And I was going through a video or somewhere where, they asked, like, if you're overthinking about something, ask yourself a question. If Is this worth thinking? Are you gonna If you think, do you think you're gonna find a solution to it, or is it just is it gonna be helpful? So whenever I used to ask those questions to myself, I got answer like no. Then chuck it, enjoy, leave. So that's how I started experiencing things.
I was just saying it's a great strategy. Sounds like a great strategy. Yeah.
I updated my phone yesterday to iOS 18, and it literally sucks. The entire time I want to degrade the software to back to 17, because they have literally converted into an Android phone, from the notifications bar to everything. The entire day I was very, very pissed at, I don't want to use my phone. I'm not happy with it. I want to go back to my previous software. How do I go? The entire time I've been, whosoever has called, I've been telling them, keep, don't update, don't do this. And lastly, when I was going to bed, I just realized, I couldn't do anything about it. They've sold the phone, I bought it. Now they've updated the software, I've done it. There's no way I can go back, or like I won't be the alone person fighting against the company, like, you've not done something good. So why have
Hmm.
the entire day I've been crubbing on this, and when I went to bed, I realized, okay, whatever I did was so shitty. Either you, next day when you wake up, you adjust with the same thing that you have, or leave it. So it, at times, it takes time to understand things. I mean, similarly, what happened, like, even though I know I didn't have to overthink, or there was no point in keeping myself, or keeping my mood off the entire time, just because of a silly software, where my senses were off the entire day. And late night I realized ki, okay, shit, whatever I did was so wrong.
No, it. I mean, see, we all have like you said that we are in charge of our own happiness and all of that. But when you've spent so many years like being anxious about things, overthinking about things, and then, like, for example, if your phone is frustrating you, then at that moment, like, your brain is too frustrated to like remember all of these like words of wisdom
Yeah.
that you have learned. And I mean, I guess the sooner you have this realization in life, it's better, because the more years you live, like, disregarding or not understanding like what it means to like make yourself happy and stuff, the more those patterns become normal for you, like the overthinking, the anxiety, the worrying about what society will think. So even though, for example, I talk so much about mental health and I'm like always happy to advise people that hey, you don't need to please the world, and like it's a very capitalist world, it anyway doesn't care about you, you live for yourself and all of that. But there are also moments when I'm hating myself, and it's bad, and it's like, but those patterns are just there, we have to break out of those patterns. And I think as a generation we are doing better at breaking out of those patterns than say the previous generation did, which I'm not saying is like a credit to our generation that like suddenly we've come on earth and like become everybody's saviors. It's just that as society evolves, the more open our understanding of things become. Like a narrow-minded person now would probably be like a lot more open-minded than a narrow-minded person in the 18th century, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people who are still like back then, if you see, they were narrow minded, but now that same personality, if you keep a little more open minded, and with time, I'm sure. And the best thing I like about people, like, I won't generalize it for everybody, but there are people, those who have been through, there are two types of people, like, if there are certain people who have been through similar things or have they can empathize, and they can understand everything that you might go through and not trouble you. But there are still wonderful people who who have been there, who have been through the same situation, but still won't hesitate to pass a judgment on you, or a comment, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it will, I guess, look, even when I say that our generation is doing better, it is because the previous generations have slowly been like laying the groundwork for this. I'm hoping that whatever work we do in our lifetimes enables like the future generations. I mean, I don't know how the future generations will exist in this world full of climate change and stuff, but to live a freer, a more authentic life.
That's what being
Because
seen
yeah,
like.
like the, yeah, like the judgmental thing also, I mean, I'm sure it'll reduce like from one century to another, like to a great extent. Of course there will always be judgment. I don't think we can like completely write that out of the human brain, but yeah, hopefully it'll get better.
But I believe at least for that 1 hour or 45 minutes or whatever time we are here meeting new people, I hope that it's always been a judgment free space where one can express themselves very freely. I hope it was the same for you. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely was. I was just about to say that. And I think that's one of the reasons, like when you talked about this podcast, the fact that it had non-judgmental in the title like sort of drew me the most towards it. Like it immediately grabbed my attention. Um so yeah, like I mean, great job on that.
I'm happy, that you decided, and this was so new to me. Usually, I find it very difficult to reach out to people and ask them out if they would like to be on the podcast, because I'm not sure if everybody wants to be on the podcast, right? Because few people want to keep it limited. Few people are introvert. They don't want. I wasn't sure how to, but I said okay, fine, let me do it, and I got great responses, and I was so intrigued by your that one thing that was there, that you are mass media journalist, multimedia journalist. I was like, wait, this is so interesting, and there were so many new things that I got to learn. I'm sure our audience as well. So before we end up, is there any
I hope so too.
before we end this podcast, is there anything you would like to communicate or add in?
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I usually like to say. Like I want to request people to be as authentic as they can, because that is the only thing they can do to ensure that the world slowly becomes a space where people are allowed to be their most authentic selves. Like we can go around preaching, but it won't really happen until everybody like starts putting it into practice and creates these like non-judgmental spaces where everybody is allowed to be authentic and doesn't have to feel like their true selves are going to be judged immensely and criticized and stuff. So yeah, I think what I would like to request everyone to just be as authentic as possible, as you safely can, that is. But yeah.
Wonderful. It was so much fun and new learnings and new things to get to know from you, Devrupa. Thank you so much for being
It
here.
was great talking to you too. Thank you so much for having me.